Hello, my name is Dr. Donna Robinson, Senior Manager for Programs and Operations for CASA DC. And I would like to welcome you today to our grand open house. Today you will learn about all of the varied programs we have here at CASA DC, as well as how to refer our most needed youth to receive a CASA volunteer. So without any further ado, I am going to pass the mic over to Allison Kahn, our Chief Operations Officer.
Brief introduction as to who we are as CASA for Children of DC, what our model looks like, why we do what we do, and who our different programs are. So we are going to start with a better understanding of who CASA for Children of DC is and where we fit into the wider CASA community and DC. CASA for Children of DC's mission is to connect every court-involved youth in DC with the one-on-one support of a consistent adult figure who can advocate for their best interests and promote positive outcomes. Our ultimate vision is that every trauma-impacted youth in DC receives excellent advocacy and support to unleash their full potential to thrive. CASA for Children of DC was formed almost 20 years ago in 2002. Since that time, we have trained over 2,000 advocates and served over 1,900 youth. We are a DC chapter of the National CASA and JAL program. Though we are based off of the National CASA and JAL model, which provides one-on-one court-appointed special advocates to foster youth, we provide unique programming such as serving juvenile justice-involved youth, and really ensure that our work promotes the specific needs of DC's youth. We work with a particular model that takes the CASA model of one-on-one volunteer mentorship and best interest advocacy, but we also incorporate that with 4 domains that we've specifically identified at CASA for Children of DC to best serve the youth of DC, and to also ensure that we are addressing the areas of a youth's life most impacted by childhood trauma. A little bit more about what that mentoring and one-on-one support looks like. CASA volunteers form a one-on-one mentor relationship with a youth or a sibling group. CASA volunteers engage youth in positive activities and work with youth towards goal attainment. Youth are supported across 4 key domains: permanency, education, well-being, and life skills. So what do those look like? These are our core mentoring activities across our 4 domains. First and foremost, our volunteers visit with youth 2 times per month. That consistent engagement, that relationship building is absolutely vital. And next we have engagement and support across our 4 domains. The first is permanency, working towards successful case closure, reunification, guardianship, adoption, or ensuring if youth is going to age out, that they're able to do so in a way that they have independent life skills and have transitioned towards adulthood successfully. Our CASAs also really work to ensure that our youth are in a stable and safe placement. Next, we have education. This includes really helping our youth with academic achievement, but also incorporating learning in their life. Our CASAs help support youth in learning activities, promote attendance and academic success. Our CASAs have the opportunity to visit youth at school, to engage with academic providers, and also do some core work with older youth around attainment of graduation and working towards higher education or skills training. Next, we have well-being, addressing our youth's behavioral, emotional, and physical well-being. And our CASAs provide key support here, educating and helping youth practice coping strategies, engaging youth in recreation, really being that positive support and engaging in positive relationships with the youth, but also really working collaboratively with the youth's team, which we'll talk more about. We don't set those appointments for physical needs for our youth, medical needs for our youth, but we do really work with the team to ensure that those needs are happening and being addressed. And next we have life skills. Life skills is really working from our youngest youth to our older youth on some of those key experiences of exposure to new experiences, character building, working towards goals, exploring career interests, and then really strategic work with our older youth such as engaging in budgeting and working with youth for preparation for the workforce. And that is our mentoring side of our core model. Next, we have our advocacy side. CASA volunteers advocate for their youth's best interests in court and the youth's interdisciplinary team, such as their social worker, their JL, their probation worker, based on the personal relationship that they form with the youth through that mentoring side and an assessment of the youth's needs and supports. CASA volunteers are appointed by the court and have the authority to participate in court hearings, team meetings, to address records, and to engage with important individuals in the youth's life, such as academic providers, which we discussed, placement providers, and other individuals. We have several core advocacy activities to support the mentoring side and to ensure we're able to communicate recommendations and supports needed to address the youth's needs. Our CASA volunteers assess our youth. That includes observation, visiting, reviewing records. They communicate. That is, as we've talked about, communicating with important individuals in the youth's life, the teachers, the placement providers, but it also means regular collaboration with that interdisciplinary team, the social worker, GIL, probation officers. And that all leads to that core advocacy. Our CASAs have the opportunity to write court reports. They are court-appointed special advocates. They have the opportunity to appear in court and provide recommendations in court. Our CASAs recommend permanency goals alongside the team, but they also provide advocacy to that interdisciplinary team for needed supports and services that may arise in between court hearings. And something important to note about the advocacy side is even if a youth is not well engaged in those in-person mentoring supports, the assessment and communication and collaboration can allow the CASA volunteer to still provide robust best interest advocacy, even if that is coming from these assessments and communications, and they do not have as regular engagement with the youth. What makes CASA DC unique? CASA DC is the only organization in DC that unites mentoring and court-appointed advocacy. CASA volunteers work with court-involved youth in the child welfare system, juvenile justice system, or those who are duly involved in both. And that is unique to CASA DC versus other CASA chapters throughout the country. And our 4 domains and special programs are also unique to CASA DC. Those have been developed based on the needs of DC youth, the trauma impact that we've observed, and are unique to CASA DC versus national CASAs and CASA chapters that you would see throughout the country. So why do we do this work? What makes this work important? We know, based on rigorous research and data, that you can observe that foster youth face lower academic achievement than their peers. And this is true in DC and throughout the nation. Foster youth have increased risk of future unemployment, poverty, homelessness, and justice involvement. Abuse and neglect and removal from home are adverse childhood experiences that contribute to childhood trauma. And adverse childhood experiences have been linked to risky behaviors, lessened school performance, relationship difficulties, and chronic health conditions through adulthood. But at the same time, we also know that a consistent positive adult figure can serve as a protective factor against adverse childhood experiences. And if you're interested in learning more about adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, the CDC has done some rigorous review of adverse childhood experiences and their protective factors. You can go to cdc.gov and read a lot more about that and what some of those protective factors, including that consistent adult figure, can look like. Studies also show that youth with mentors are more likely to have improved academic outcomes. Mentor-mentee relationships can promote positive skill development, healthy coping mechanisms, and career readiness. And youth with CASA volunteers have reduced number of placements and increased services based on studies that have been done by National CASA. So these are some of the core reasons why we have our CASA Core model and why we do the work that we do. So we're going to look at very briefly CASA DC's programs. And this is the core of our open house. After we move on from our introduction, you'll have the opportunity to go into breakout rooms and learn more about the individual programs of your choice. So everything we've talked about today is a part of CASA Core. CASA DC seeks to provide consistent support through mentorship and advocacy to youth, which recognizes the impact of trauma experienced by court-involved youth and evidence-based practices to help youth thrive. This is the CASA Core. This is the foundation of our work across programs, and every one of our special programs uses this model as a foundation. Our special programs include Bridges, which serves youth involved in the juvenile justice system, Empower, supporting youth survivors of trafficking and sexual violence, the Family Treatment Court or Thrive program, supporting substance-impacted youth and families, MAP, the Multicultural Advocacy program, serving immigrant and first-generation youth, and Preparing Youth for Adulthood, empowering transitioning youth towards a successful adulthood.
Okay, so welcome. My name is Brandon Garrett. I am the program manager for the Multicultural Advocacy program. Thank you so much for being here. So to begin, MAP was initially started in 2015, serving just unaccompanied refugee minors, and because we saw an uptick in the kind of clients that we're seeing and who are being referred. So we started this program to really adjust their specific needs. And then we started this entire initiative to focus diligently on how to learn more about this population. We met with judges and met with a lot of volunteers who are already working with this population to understand what this program could really look like and how to really focus on them. So with that, the program had a reimagination in 2020 where I came in and made some changes up to this point to really highlight the strengths of the youth and focus our training on what the volunteers need to know to work with this population. And since 2020, we've served over 40 youth and families, including unaccompanied refugee minors, immigrant origin youth, and just youth of cultural diverse backgrounds. So, with that, the MAP's a policy. So MAP strives to maximize the potential of unaccompanied refugee minors, immigrant youth, and children of culturally diverse backgrounds through supportive and culturally responsive care to address their cultural, academic, life skills, and personal health and wellness needs to achieve economic and social self-sufficiency. So the populations that we serve, so like I said, unaccompanied refugee minors is the focus of this, but we've expanded just a bit more to really capture like all of the youth who really need this kind of special focus. So that's any migrant youth, so anyone who was born outside of the US, first and second generation immigrants, foster youth with multicultural families, and youth whose primary or secondary language is English, and the same for their parents. So currently we have a lot of countries represented in MAP. We have youth from all over. We see a lot of, DC is very unique in that there isn't like one specific, region or nation that these youth are coming from. These youth and families, we see them from all over. So here's just a quick look at the countries that we currently have represented. I wanted to share a little bit about the DC metrics, right? Because I think it's really important to understand how big this population is. So 1 in 7 DC residents is an immigrant, which is huge, right? That is a lot of people. And then 1 in 9 is native born with at least one immigrant parent. And yeah, just a couple more metrics there. So just looking at these numbers, I really want to highlight how big this community is. It's huge. And something that I really want to note is that 1 in 5 self-employed business owners in the district is an immigrant. That means that their buying power and their influence on this city is so incredible. They make up such a large part of the labor force, and the innovation and movement that this community has is just so well, like DC would not be the same without its immigrant population. So yeah, why MAP is needed? The families that we see and the youth that we see have gone through a lot of trauma, a lot of different experiences getting here. There's a lot of separation. There's a lot of barriers to access to public benefits, and just a lot of support needed. So when we look at this information that's shared here, we need to know that this population is in need of a lot of support with their cultural issues, and then that can impact them positively to increase their quality of life, their outcomes, and their youth and family engagement towards permanency. So some of the common challenges that we see, youth are coming from all over. So learning English is very complicated. It's hard as a native English speaker. So we need a representation so that they can understand what is being given to them, how to engage in school, how to get their English skills up, and then really help in that representation in the court setting. So, and then with also, they need assistance on ongoing cultural orientation and integration. So learning what it's like to be in the States and really learning how to be your own community, figure out exactly, what you need as your own cultural identity while still finding community in, American culture. And then international family tracing and reunification and issues involving trafficking, smuggling, migration trauma, and other specialty fields. So we see this as like families have a lot of different statuses when it comes to their immigration needs, and it can be really complicated. So we're there to help navigate that process as well. So how are we making a difference? So a lot of our youth are really increasing their English proficiency, which leads to employment, and education opportunities. MAP youth have also been connected to their chosen cultural communities for social wellness. This could be groups, this could be sports, this can be religious and faith-based, really just helping them find that community wherever we can. MAP youth continue to increase their personal savings and financial literacy, and receive coaching through both the CASA volunteers and like community resources that we help find for them. And then MAP youth have lowered barriers to accessing wellness programs, social groups, and legal representation. So, what the things that we offer to the youth, very specialized, specific training for the CASA volunteers that really focus on what that cultural engagement looks like, how to be culturally responsive and really sensitive to what this population is going through. Again, that one-to-one mentorship that Allison was mentioning. Connection with immigration attorneys, help with interpreting and translating, whether it's documents outside of court, whether that's information in the school-based setting, helping them navigate medical, just and public benefits, things like that. What we also offer is, culturally responsive and trauma-informed advocacy, really bringing that eye and that lens to the court setting so that, we're representing the youth in the most positive and safe and way that we can, right? And then we can also connect them to ethnic and religious communities of their identity. We've been able to find a lot of different resources and communities in Virginia, Maryland, and DC that the kids have been able to engage in. Also a lot of career exploration and job search assistance, group activities, helping them apply for colleges, helping them prepare for graduation, really getting them to that next step. So very specific. So these are my program goals. So what I really want the CASAs to be aware of and how we're going to support this youth is with three main points, right? So it's culturally responsive care, which is the CASAs will center their advocacy around topics related to the youth's cultural needs and their well-being. The second one is economic independence. The CASA will help identify their personal economic goals and engage the youth in career exploration activities, really helping them get towards that next step. As I mentioned before, this population has a huge buying power and a lot of influence in this city. So really helping them understand what that means and how they can thrive as well. And the third would be personal health and wellness. So creating personal wellness plans that really center the youth cultural needs as well as their nutrition, exercise, and eating habits. Also with that comes with a lot of independent living skills building, right? And learning how to be on your own and support yourself. So our projected outcomes. So really what we're seeing and what we would like to continue seeing is, the youth are participating in volunteer activities and are civically engaged. They are aware of the role of the CASAs that are serving them and how they can really lean into that support. They also are getting connections to their communities, as I was saying. The youth are making really smart goals to further their education, get towards their career, and do their vocational training. I know we have a lot of youth who are looking at alternative ways to really increase their education and go into specialized training fields, which is really incredible. So also the youth are practicing like healthy coping skills and self-care practices that are really going to help them in the long run. The youth are going to learn a lot more about American culture and what that means while maintaining their own heritage. These are really tough conversations, but so far our CASAs have done a really, really amazing job keeping this in view when they're working with their youth. So they also receive any needed services regarding their mental and physical health, education, and life skills. And also the barriers to access like educational attainment are identified, and we bring that up in court frequently. And then another large thing with this population is with the varying immigration statuses, we're able to help them understand what their rights are being in the city. What does it mean if you're stopped by an officer? What rights are you entitled to, knowing your status, whether you're asylum seeking, green card holder, whatever it is. So who are volunteers? So we have volunteers from very, very diverse cultural backgrounds. We have a lot of volunteers who represent the communities that they're serving. And they also receive very specialized, unique training that really focuses on working with unaccompanied refugee minors and other immigrant population. What does it mean to be culturally responsive and keep that in a safe space? And also independent living skills based on their age appropriate living skills, so that we can help them move to that next step. Also financial literacy can be explored with the youth, so that they're preparing themselves for what it looks like when they emancipate. And also self-care, health and wellness, and nutrition. So those are a lot of things. I have a very comprehensive training for all of the volunteers that go through this, so that they are really equipped and ready to work with any youth that they get matched with. Yeah. So that is my entire presentation. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for listening. Do you have any questions specifically about MAP before we hop back into the breakout?
I have a quick question, Brandon. Do all the youth that, I guess, can acquire these services, they all have to be like registered under like the court appointed, like under CASA, like it can't be youth that have already been linked up to lawyers or other agencies?
I'm actually not sure. Would you be able to answer that, Donna?
I think that if they have been, it doesn't matter where the attorney comes from. It's basically looking at youth that are under the supervision of Child and Family Services, and so they would be served by the same judges. So so we have the attorneys come from anywhere from private to public to GAL, so there's different backgrounds for the attorneys. The common thing is that they're under the supervision of Child and Family Services, and that the order comes through the court. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
A lot in your individual sessions, and now we are going to look at how to be able to refer youth to CASA DC, and I'm going to pass it over to Haley.
Hi everyone, I'm Haley and I'm one of the CASA supervisors here, and I am going to be talking to you a little bit more how you can start the referral process. So all CASA DC referrals must be authorized by the court. However, when a partner identifies a youth for CASA services, we can facilitate that referral through coordination with the court. So there are 4 ways to make a CASA referral through kind of 2 different avenues. So the first avenue is directly through the court. And one way that you can do it through the court, so this is way 104, is requesting CASA services at the court hearing. And another way is filing a motion through the attorney specifically. And then the second avenue is through CASA DC ourselves. And the first way that you can do that is by emailing the referrals at casadc.org and requesting a referral that way, or completing the survey at this link, which I believe Donna will be putting in the chat for you all. So those are like kind of the 2 different avenues. So through the court and then through CASA specifically. And yeah.
So I want to open the floor up to questions, and it can be questions about CASA, CASA Core, or about any of the programs that either you were able to visit or you were not able to visit. So does anyone have any questions?
I have a question pertaining to like the CASA referrals. Like this is only like, I'm assuming it's not for immigration courts, correct?
When you say immigration court, are you talking about if they have a separate court outside of the court hearing they might attend with Child and Family Services?
Yes. Is it only under the Child and Family Services? Like, for example, for unaccompanied children, how would that referral process look like? Or is it the same?
So that's a really great question. We do work with unaccompanied refugee minors. So that is an area that we support, but that typically are already involved in the child welfare system. If you think there is opportunity for us to further support youth who are involved in immigration courts but are not involved in CFSA and the child welfare system, if you could just drop your email in the chat, because we'd love to follow up with you more about that question.
Yes, of course, that'd be awesome.
Any other questions?
To piggyback off of that question, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. It's just to say that I work for KIND, Kids in Need of Defense, and we do handle the vast majority of our cases are unaccompanied children who are in the custody of the Superior Court through primarily custody hearings, and I'm guessing that is not like through that mechanism would we be able to get connected to that MAP program, because it sounds amazing.
So the custody side is an area that we are not currently working in, but that we are very eager to explore and have discussed. So again, we can, if you can also drop your email in the chat. I know that it's an area that we'd really like to explore more. So we'd love to follow up with you after this meeting.
Great, thanks.
So I have actually put both the email to our referrals email, as well as the link to the survey that you can complete to make a referral. Both of those have been placed in the chat, and we are happy to stick around if you have any other questions. Otherwise, this ends our first session, and I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. This was really helpful. It was really good to hear what is happening in the city.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to work together to jointly serve the youth in your care.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Or you can complete the Get Feedback referral survey using the link below and make a CASA referral or request at that point. If you have any additional questions, feel free to contact the program manager for either of the programs that you're interested in, or you can send your questions to referrals@casadc.org. Thank you for attending our session today.